President Trump insists he had no problem with his White House counsel speaking to special counsel Robert Mueller. Don McGahn reportedly sat down with Mueller's investigators for 30 hours in 3 separate interviews. The president quickly blasted the report and called the Russia probe McCarthyism at its worst. His legal spokesman, Rudy Giuliani, says he's worried about Mueller's motives because, quote, truth isn't truth. Major Garrett is at the White House. He's been talking with the Trump legal team. Major, good morning.
Well, good morning. The president's lawyers, past and present, say they know and have known that White House counsel Don McGahn spent hours and hours with special counsel Robert Mueller and his investigators. These lawyers say they're not afraid about what McGahn told Mueller about the firing of FBI Director James Comey and the White House investigation and subsequent firing of National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. But McGahn's time spent with Mueller and his evident candor have raised fears here of a presidential perjury trap.
I'm not going to be rushed into having him testify so that he gets trapped into perjury.
Rudy Giuliani, one of President Trump's lawyers, argued Sunday that Mr. Trump could perjure himself during an interview with special counsel Robert Mueller because each side has a different definition of motive, evidence, and truth.
Because it's somebody's version of the truth, not the truth. He didn't have a conversation.
Truth is truth. I don't mean to go like...
No, it isn't truth. Truth isn't truth.
The exchange about provable truth came as questions were raised about what White House counsel Don McGahn, at the center of Mr. Trump's most scrutinized decisions dealing with Comey and Flynn, told Mueller. McGahn gave Mueller's investigators a sense of the president's thinking when he fired Comey, as well as the move to oust Flynn. He was also a witness to Mr. Trump's criticism, public and private, of Attorney General Jeff Sessions, as well as White House debates over whether to fire Mueller. Current and former members of the president's legal team say they are aware of topics McGahn covered with Mueller and are not concerned.
McGahn was a strong witness for the president.
According to a story in the New York Times that others on the president's legal team dispute, McGahn was reportedly surprised the president gave him the green light and, quote, feared Mr. Trump was setting him up to take the blame for any possible illegal acts of obstruction, unquote.
We did nothing. There's no collusion.
President Trump attacked the New York Times story, saying he, quote, allowed McGahn to talk to Mueller because he had nothing to hide. No one knows what McGahn told Mueller's investigators except those directly involved. The key issue here is if his version of events would, if President Trump were to testify, in any way conflict or reinforce the recollections or memos of James Comey. That's one issue. What we do know is no charges have been filed, and Mueller has not issued a subpoena to testify, to compel President Trump's testimony, something we might expect if McGahn, in those interviews, had provided real evidence or some bombshells that might implicate the president. John?
Major, I want to ask you about another separate investigation that's going on by federal prosecutors in New York into President Trump's fixer, or former lawyer, Michael Cohen. It's in its final stages. What do we know about the charges they're considering?
Well, they could involve bank fraud, tax fraud. They could also involve failure to report income from taxi medallions in New York. There could be some campaign finance violations filed against Michael Cohen. All of this about either things he undertook in terms of obtaining loans, work he did on behalf of Mr. Trump, business and political. And we are told those charges could come by month's end. John?
And of course, we are still waiting for a verdict in the Paul Manafort trial as well.